All right, so today we're going to talk about something much more interesting than saving lives or CPR. We're going to talk about backpacks. So everybody has a backpack these days. If you look around outside or at work or whatever, somebody's probably carrying one. Probably it's you and your friends and everybody you know. They're used for everything, going to the gym, going to school, going to work, you name it. Someone's probably using a backpack for it. And they're known by tons of names all over the world, like a rucksack or a backpack or whatever you might want to call it, but they're in common use pretty much everywhere these days. According to the Wall Street Journal, they're taking over the corporate world. People are ditching briefcases, even as high-powered lawyers and business executives. They're all going the way of the backpack now. It's also become the most popular travel bag, according to ABC News. So if you're going on a long trip, airports, buses, trains, even in your car, you're probably bringing one there too. So they're in such common use, but a lot of people don't use some of the kind of interesting features about them, or maybe they're just packing them wrong, or they don't know exactly how to properly wear it if they've got some weight in there. I thought it'd be a kind of interesting way to demonstrate that today. This would be a good opportunity to do so, rather. Even if you don't use one, probably somebody you know does, so it's good to know a couple tips involving how to properly wear it. The reason for that is it's going to improve your personal health, the safety of the things inside your backpack, and just comfort, which everybody cares about. Slide, please. I first got interested in the idea, where else in the military you walk around with like 100-pound bags or whatever it is, going up and down mountains and things like that, and people get pains like hips, back pain, shoulders, that sort of thing, stress fractures. According to the Marine Corps Joint Gender Research Study, which was reported on by NPR, women are at higher risk for that. So with a large, heavy load, the childbearing pelvic structure that women have is in a pretty big danger from damage if it's not worn properly. Some women receive like stress fractures in their hip, and others were even sterilized for not wearing their backpacks correctly. They can never bear a child again. So it can be kind of important. Odds are you won't be in that situation, but if you are, it's something to keep in mind. Slide, please. Even if you're not doing anything too intense, this was one of the worst days of my life, even though it was a lot of fun, because I brought a backpack, it had a dry pair of clothes in it. It started raining on us as we were hiking through this jungle, and I didn't take the 5 minutes to just waterproof the things inside, and it ended up being about a 14-mile hike with wet socks, wet clothes. It was terrible. So I never forgot that, and I decided that I would try and be a little bit safer with it in the future. Additionally, one time I was going to an airport, and I was flying internationally. It was an international flight to Japan, so it's about a 14-hour flight, and my connecting flight to that airport was delayed. So I went from having an hour and a half layover to about 10 minutes. It was a 30-minute walk through the airport to get to my gate, and my baggage was already on that next plane, so the only option I had was to strap everything down. It was about 20 pounds and just run through the airport. It wasn't fun, but thankfully I didn't miss my flight. So it can be a practical skill too. So we'll get right into it. I kind of loaded this backpack up with anything you could be kind of expected to have on a long trip. So this is a hygiene kit. It's waterproof. I recommend people get one. Extra pair of shoes. This could just be clothes. I mean, basically anything. It's sort of just as an example. You can never have too many socks. And then at the bottom, to simulate, if you're hiking, maybe a heavy tent or something like that. This is just a 20-pound kettlebell. Anything that is heavy or metal, anything like that, you want to wrap it properly. If it's resting against your back on a long movement, you're going to feel it real quick, and it sucks, I promise. You can never ever have too many socks. If one pair gets wet, then you can swap it out. I included one in a sealed plastic bag. This is the easiest way to waterproof things, especially if you're not too worried about most of the stuff getting wet, but you just want to keep socks good. Even a plastic bag, like a freezer bag or something like that, works just fine. If it's something a little bit larger, like maybe shoes you want to keep good, you can put it in a freezer bag or what do they call grocery store bags, just those larger plastic ones. Hygiene kit I recommend, you just get one like this, nice and waterproof, put all your stuff in there. And it keeps things real easy to travel with. And then, so we'll start from the very bottom. If you're hiking something like 10 poles or anything heavy, a radio, that sort of thing, you want to make sure it's wrapped, like I said, so it's not resting directly against your back. And then, since it's hard and it's heavy and it's flat and it's durable, that's probably going to be what you want at the bottom. You want to get flat surfaces in there quickly because they're going to rest on top of each other and they're pretty easy to store. if you start jamming things like this at the top of the bag, it's gonna twist your back around and you're gonna feel it. It's not a fun experience. Next up, I usually go with shoes. These are flat surfaces themselves. If they're nice leather, they're pretty durable too. I like to get these kind of against the back, as you can see here, stacked just like this. In this way, they're sort of keeping up the formation of what you're trying to fill in here, and they're keeping the back nice and tight. After that, you can kind of fill as you need to. Socks can go anywhere. They're going to fill in the small spaces. Clothing items like this, or whatever you might have in here, trinkets, that sort of thing, kept together in a bag and stored on top. And then something like a hygiene kit can go at the very top. That's way it's pretty easy to access. It's kind of malleable. It won't get too messed up by being jammed in there. Even if things don't look like they're gonna close on you, I'm sure you'll be able to work it out if you try hard enough. A lot of backpacks these days have a hydration pouch in the back too, so if you have something like a Camelback with a straw, it can come through. Additionally, you've got things like the laptop pouch and stuff. Backpacks are getting pretty fancy, but you really don't need that kind of stuff. Usually your water will go here. Additionally, I packed a garbage bag for a couple of reasons. Usually, if you're going somewhere and you're taking stuff like you're hiking or something along those lines, you're gonna wanna pack out what you pack in. That means you don't leave trash behind. One, that's just good manners, and two, it can attract wildlife and do damage and things like that, right? Finally, this is also important because if you're trying to waterproof everything in your bag, this is the easiest and cheapest way to do it. You would do everything I just did, except you would load it first into this garbage bag, load the bag into the backpack, and then seal it up. That way it's pretty waterproof. It's a good idea to have a few of these with you if you're going somewhere. All right, so if you're using anything that's kind of heavy, there's a proper way to actually put it on your back, because if you're trying to pick it up just one arm and fling it around your shoulder like most people usually do, there's a chance you could hurt yourself. If it's heavy, you might twist your back or something like that. So the proper way to put a backpack on is also going to be the best way to mount it on your back. Looks something like this. You'll lay it face down on the ground like this, loosen up the shoulder straps a little bit just so that they're not ultra tight. On a lot of the larger hiking backpacks, there's going to be handles here too. If you were ever wondering what those are for, this is for this movement, but this backpack doesn't have them. Next, you're going to check your surroundings, make sure there's nobody above or nothing that you might hit with the bag or behind you. You'll take it in both hands like this, then with like a proper sort of a kettlebell swing motion. You're going to raise it up over your head and let it seat on your shoulders like that. The reason you're doing that is that's your body's most natural way to engage your core and bring it over your head without hurting yourself. Next thing you'll do is bend over at the waist, let the backpack kind of rest high on the shoulders, and tighten the shoulder straps down. You can see now it's pretty high up on my body. That way, it's engaging your core and keeping you like nice and comfortable. You want to use your shoulders as much as you can and the core of your body. That's basically the principle of it. Finally, you've got your chest strap. In my opinion, this should be as tight as you can get it, because that's, again, you can see as it tightens the shoulders, it's going to keep things nice and centralized in your back. Over the course of like a 10-mile hike or something along those lines, differences like this can really make all the difference. Or I'm sorry, changes like this can make all the difference as you're moving around, because you don't want to have that feeling of something listing to one side or one shoulder taking more weight than the other or anything along those lines. There's also a waist strap. Nothing complicated with that one. You just clip it if you need it. Usually that'd be for something like rock climbing, if you're doing that. Finally, there's a proper way to take the backpack off. Again, not too important if you just have like a laptop in there, but if there's any weight at all, what you want to do, unclip your straps, let it rest on just one shoulder, your strong side hopefully. You make a hook with your arm like that, let it slide down, and then with a proper squatting motion, you bring it to the floor, just like that. So, there are also some other kind of interesting features backpacks have these days. Just to go over them real quick, it might have like a thermal insulation. It might have a laptop pouch that's hardened. It might have zippers that you can't open unless the backpack is off of your back. It's important to take note of that when you're buying one, just on the basis of you don't want to damage that part of the equipment if you end up in a situation like you're trying to jam too many things in there and you might compromise the thermal lining. But odds are, if you're buying a backpack for about 50 bucks, which in my opinion is all you need for most things, it's not gonna have anything super complicated. But it's a good idea to sit down with it real fast and make sure that you have a good idea of all the features in it. So to wrap it up, backpacks are popular now and they're gaining momentum. You're probably gonna be using one for the rest of your life, so it's a good idea to learn some of the more basic features of it and how to wear it comfortably. According to the National Institute of Health, 80% of adults are going to have lower back pain before they die, I suppose. So it's a good idea to mitigate that as well. And proper wear of your backpack that you're going to be wearing for the rest of your life is a great way to do that. Hopefully you all learned something. Thank you for your time.